What's up, guys? How goes it? I'm having to yell a little bit. I have my fans on. Excuse me, I'm messy, but I'm working today. Working on some stuff at the house. Now, I decided, you know what? I don't have a lot of things going on right now, so I'm going to do something for my subscribers, for my buddies out there, and I'm going to do a review. Now, I firmly believe that you should not do a review on something that you haven't used. When I see people that got a discount to do a review, I have a hard time believing that you're not biased, because if you're any kind of decent human, then you feel obligated to help people that have helped you. So if somebody gives you a discount, I kind of feel like you're going to overlook some things or justify some things that don't need to be justified. So what I'm going to do is do reviews on things that I've spent time with, and only things that I've spent time with, and things that I know work or don't work. Either way. So I'm going to do a review on this little bastard. I call it the Trooper. This is the 80 amp inverter welder, stick welder from Harbor Freight. This is where you get the really cool action shots. Oh my god, 80 amp inverter welder, Chicago Electric. Oh, here's all the specs. 47 amps is 100% duty cycle, 61 amps is 60%, 75 amps is 40%. On this side you have all your warnings about try not to die, and your amazing settings, positive, negative amps. That's pretty much it, guys. That's the end of the review. It works. Just kidding. But positive, negative amps, that's pretty much what you get. Now, what do I have to say about this little welder? This thing's been a blessing in my life, and let me tell you why. First of all, I call it the Trooper because I've never had this thing thermally overload on me. And I put together my work trailer. I know you guys have seen it in other videos. It's what I use every day to work in. Some of my stuff in there. Like I said before, I built it with old bed frames. And I'll do a separate video on old bed frames, but one thing to note is old bed frames are high carbon steel. They're made from old railroad tracks out of New Jersey. They are hard to weld with 6011 and 7018. You're not going to be able to weld them in cold weather. You're not going to be able to weld them with any kind of breeze blowing. I live in Florida. I had to wait till the hottest part of the day, right in the middle of the sun. Trust me, that was a pain in the ass, but I got it done. And now I have a super strong trailer that weighs 1,800 pounds empty. Anyway, I've done, and you can check through my videos, I've done a stainless steel sink repair where I had to go inside a restaurant. I used this bad boy with 308L rod. I had to repair a hinge on the back of a roll-off dumpster where my leads wouldn't reach, but my extension cord would. I used this bad boy. At the equestrian ranch job, I built frames to go around all the stall doors for the horse stalls. I have a welder over there that runs off of a generator right there. But gas is expensive, so I was able to use their power. I used this bad boy. I know you want to see some welds, so that's what we're going to do for you next. But this thing has been a blessing. It's great for, I mean, it's the size of a lunchbox. It's literally, I have a big head, but look. And all you have is simply, on every stick welder, the thermal overload light, which I've never seen come on, and it's never shut off on me. And I've put some pretty long welds, and the only thing I have done that you might take note of is that it tripped when I was on the other end of the house, it tripped my GFCI a few times. And I had to come all the way into the garage. That's the little outlet in the garage, somewhere in your garage or somewhere like that, that has the test and reset button on it. Had to come and reset it and then weld for a while. I'd let it cool off and then weld for a while. Now, when I was doing the job building the doors, the horse stall doors, I tripped the breaker twice during long runs at their place. I doubt they have a GFCI out there at the, at those stalls in the maintenance shed. But either way, it will trip a breaker. I mean, if you can't handle, if you don't have enough power to handle it, you're going to need the 20 amp, 30 amp would be better breaker, but whatever, 20 amp will do it. You just can't do super long runs. But anyway, it's never shut off on me. It's kept going, and it's worked every time I've turned it on. Let's do some welds. But I think I failed to mention that it's only 120 power, so you're going to have to, plug it into 120 power. It's not 240. It's not going to push past 80 amps. No reason to be 240. Yeah, let's do those welds. The 80 amp comes with, I think these are about 6 feet of lead. It has DINS 25 connectors. Obviously, you just put it in there, twist. I learned this little trick from a fellow named Bob Moffitt, where I use a little bit of steel wool and then clamp it on there, and it gives it a little bit more surface area for the ground. It's a rough looking ground, boys. I've used that quite a bit. I'm going to be welding in DC electrode positive today. And just put it in there and twist and lock it in, boys. Now, it does not come with this stinger. I bought this stinger at Harbor Freight, where I got that one. It's a Burger. Yeah, Burger. It's an Asperger. And it's super strong. It's a good stinger, but the stinger I had on it, I ended up using it on a big job on this machine, and basically melted the end off. Now, I have it as a backup just in case I need it. It didn't really melt the end off, but it melted it up pretty good. Alright guys, just to show you what this really can do, I'm going to use some old rusty metal that I got off the bottom of an air compressor. It was like the stand on it or something. It was connected to something else. And 6011 rod, so it'll burn right through that. Now, this machine will do 3/32 6011, 3/32 7018. I run the 6011 at 69 amps on this particular machine, and then I'll vary up and down. I welded some really thin tubing on a circular hay feeder the other day, and I turned it down to 65 amps. The 7018, I usually run about 75 up to 80 amps for the 3/32, and it'll do 1/8 6011 all the way up on 80 amps. And I haven't really tried 1/8 7018 because I figure why. Normally around the house with thinner metal, you're going to use the 3/32 rod. They're a little bit shorter, right? I think they're 12 inches versus 14. And they're obviously smaller. You're going to use a lot more of them, but most people, that are going to use this little welder aren't really after the 1/8 rod, or they're not going to be using steel thick enough. If it's not basically over 1/8 of an inch, more like 1/4 of an inch, I don't really use 1/8 inch rod anyway because it's not worth it. And I'm using, I don't know if you can see the green dot Lincoln rods from Lowe's is what I normally use, just because it's cheaper to actually get the 3/32 rod at Lowe's than it is at Harbor Freight. But the 1/8 inch rod is cheaper to get at Harbor Freight. The Vulcan. Guys, I apologize about the amateur nature of this review, but this is what it's the only way I know how to do it. It's totally amateur. Let's go ahead and get my PPE on, my gear, and lay down a couple beads where you can see from a distance. And then I've got a little lens here, a shade 10 lens that I'm going to put over the phone and see if I could try to get some kind of a makeshift arc shot for you. Alright guys, another thing to keep in mind, no, I'm not wearing any sleeves. Like I've said in other videos, I'm not really susceptible to it when I'm doing small runs. I live in Florida, I'm in the sun all the time. I don't wear sunblock every time I go out in the sun, but if I'm going to be in it for a while, I will. You guys have seen me wear sleeves, you've seen me wear my denim shirt. I normally do, but right now I'm only going to be doing some smaller beads, smaller runs. Now I've got everything hooked up. Let's see if we can get an arc started with this rusty metal, with the ground being over there on that. Let me turn this thing to 69 amps, thereabouts. Oh yeah. See how it's going out? That's because we have a super bad ground. And it's kind of burn through rust, which it normally does as long as you have a good ground. Now if you'll notice, hopefully you can hear me, I'm going way out of the puddle, because they'll tell you not to go out. They can tell you anything they want to, but that does not work in the real world. I go way out of the puddle and come back in. I think most people do. I do little circles and circle right back in and melt my new puddle. Let that other one solidify a little bit. Boom! Alright guys, so I forgot to tell you, there's the power button. It's on the back. And the fan. I normally like to keep one of these high thrust fans pointed at the back of it to kind of help out. That's why, I don't know if you can see back in there. Back in there I have a fan that's constantly blowing on my main welder and my plasma cutter. There. I have 3 other fans up there. Those 2 fans are high thrust, so I keep them pointed at me. And then this one's high thrust, so I keep it pointed at my legs or my ass. But you can see here that I have warped this plate just by putting that much heat into it. I didn't even weld that long. It's 3/32 rod, right? That thing was twisted. I mean, that's probably a 3/32 thick, you know, plate anyway. It's just scrap. I mean, it's rusted. I ain't gonna use it for anything but this. But you can see it warped it big time. Come around the edge. So anyway, these are 6011 beads. You guys have all seen 7018. I'm not going to show you that. It's not hard to make 7018 pretty. It's a freaking Basically just lay it up against, if you got your amp set right, you can lay it up against the steel and turn the other way and have a conversation with somebody while it's running and just take a nap. But that's 6011. You know, it's got a spatter, as you can see. That's because it's so damn rusty. You know, I'm welding on this rust. Most of that stuff will wipe right off. It's just little BBs, right? One of my biggest pet peeves is when somebody calls it splatter, because it's not splatter. It is spatter. S-P-A-T-T-E-R. Splatter is something you do, you know, after a night out at Taco Bell. That is spatter. Now I'm going to clean it off with a wire wheel. I usually use one of these damn respirators, but I mean, I'm just doing this real quick and I'm not grinding it all. If I was grinding, I'd use a respirator. Alright guys, as you can see, those are some damn good 6011 welds. Now the issue is the spatter. You're gonna get that if you don't clean your damn if you don't clean this shit off. If you're rust, I mean, look at that. That's just straight rust, boys. If you're gonna be welding on straight rust like that, you are gonna get spatter. That's what you get for welding on this bullshit. But you can see it ate right through that rust too. That's the point. If you're welding through rust like this, I believe spatter is the least of your worries at that point. You've got other problems. But that just goes to show you that, yeah, it's going to eat through it. The machine can push it. The machine can do it. Like I said, if you're at 47 amps, it's 100% duty cycle. I usually stay right around 69, so you're looking at close to a 60% duty cycle. I mean, I've never had it shut off, and I mean, you saw, I went through those like 5 or 6 rods right there. Alright guys, so there you have it. My first ever review. Obviously it sucked, but you know what? I'm not in a studio. I'm not a pro at this. I don't know what to tell you other than in the real world, this little dude will kick ass. I would say the biggest thing that impresses me is how long it'll go without getting hot. I mean, I've shot breakers and everything before this thing ever got hot and turned off. But guys, it's my first ever review. I hope you like it. It's obviously not a pro review. It's obviously not a pro piece of equipment either. But if you're trying to pick this up to do some stuff around the house, that little thing kicks ass. Alright guys, as most of you know, my budget is a Harbor Freight budget. That's how I got started. Now the stuff that you see, the DeWalt, the Makita, stuff like that, that was left to me by my father-in-law. He's passed away and I'm using his tools. He was a welder as well. Great man. Took care of his family. Great man. Now, so I say that to say this. I'm on a Harbor Freight budget, man. That's where I get most of my tools. So that's a lot of my reviews are going to be on cheaper equipment, stuff that most people are going to be able to afford, most hobbyists, most people just getting started off. Now I do run a business with this stuff and it works great for me, and I've, you know, done a lot of research and picked and choose. But that leads me to my next story. When you're doing research out there, I want you to beware of shitty information. Okay, review over. Now it's time to get real. Beware of shitty information, and here's what I mean. Now, I had already built this entire trailer at this point and hadn't started my business yet. I was getting, you know, things rolling. I had to save up and get the other welder there. I've got 3 stick welders and now a MIG welder. I'll show you guys that soon. But I was watching a Melton Metal Anthony video. He's got another good channel. It's pretty funny. But I was watching one of his videos and he was just showing this little handheld welder he got a hold of. It's not a MIG welder, like literally just, it was all a welder in one thing. It was handheld welder. And it was like the glue gun, the glue gun of welding, right? A little glue gun. It was neat. It was a cute little thing. So I saw a comment where this guy says, it's got to be better than that little 80 amp arc welder at Harbor Freight. So I was like, well, what do you mean, man? I've had good luck with it. I built a trailer with it. What do you mean? So then he starts I don't know, man. When you've been welding for a while, you can kind of tell when people are not welders or if they're just hobbies or whatever. When you start delving in a little deeper, or a lot of their comments that they make, you can kind of tell, okay, this guy don't have a clue what he's talking about. So he starts asking me questions. Well, what kind of rods do you use with it, and blah 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 blah. And I'm kind of thinking, does this guy even weld? Does he even know how to weld? He's like, well, maybe I'll have to revisit it. Asking me what my settings are. I'm like, dude, what? You know what I mean? Like, look on the box of welding rods. That'll kind of get you started. And I was like, man, I've had great luck with it. I use it all the time. And then he said the next thing that threw me for a loop. Well, I found it in the trash, so maybe I'll have to just, tinker with it a little bit more and revisit it. And that was just as if there weren't so many red flags going through this conversation. That was the biggest red flag, right? Just, what, dude? You found it in the trash? Like, you're going to talk shit about this machine when you found it in the trash, so there was obviously something wrong with it in the first place. Or the last person didn't know how to use it either. So beware of bad information, guys. This little machine, if you're trying to get started out here and you want to start off stick welding, I recommend starting off stick welding. There's a lot of guys that'll recommend start off MIG because it's easier, because we're humans. We're just like electricity. We're going to take the easiest route to ground. There are some men that want to start off with the hardest thing first and then do the easy thing. And then there's some men that sit down to pee. Disclaimer. I'm not affiliated with Harbor Freight. I buy a lot of shit there, but I pay, well, I'm a member of the Inside Track Club, so I don't pay full price, but I pay mostly full price. But either way, I'm not affiliated with Harbor Freight. They're not paying me to tell you this. I mean, it's a fucking cheap-ass $160 arc welder. I don't think they care. It's Chicago Electric, right? I've seen some of their other shit that I just wouldn't buy. But this thing, it's a beast. It's a trooper. Hey, do what you want.